Hey guys, Matt Straight Race Cards here, and welcome back to the More Than a Collector podcast, where our goal is to inspire and encourage you through other collectors' stories, where we believe that everyone has a unique story worth sharing. And so I hope as you watch this that you'll be encouraged and inspired as we, uncover another collector's story. And so tonight I am just over the moon about this guest coming on the podcast because there are a few channels that I truly every video he puts out, I am just eagerly anticipating it because of just his passion for baseball history, just his love for collecting, and he just has an amazing presence about himself. And so I am so grateful for this guy. So I'm excited to get to hear his story. And so I'm going to put him on here. John, great to see you, man.
Matt, great to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm really excited to finally get a chance to talk to you face to face. For those of you guys who don't know, I am a fairly new YouTube channel. Been around for about 4 months, but Matt and I actually connected shortly after my first couple videos in a rather serendipitous way, I would say.
Yeah.
We'll tell that story in a second, but Matt, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to talk cards tonight.
Yeah, John, what a joy, brother. It's been, and I've not been on YouTube a whole lot longer than you have. I'm, probably about 7 or 8 months here. So two kindred spirits can unite. But, enough about me. I'd love to hear, obviously we have a really funny story about how we kind of connected, just crazy. But I'd love to hear more of your story and just give us your background and collecting journey.
Sure. Okay. So before I get into it, we gotta share the story. It all starts with a 1956 Topps, and again, pardon the glare here.
Love it.
George
I'll show
Kell,
mine as well.
PSA 5. And the reason why it begins here is because, again, about 4 months ago, I had made a offer on this card, and it was accepted. And we're going along through the process, and a gentleman reaches out to me via eBay and he says, your cards along the way, not, verbatim. And I'm taking a look at the name, the sign off name is Matt and the screen name is Straight Race Cards. And I'm like, Straight Race Cards. I'm like, I know Straight Race Cards. Where do I know them from? I had just finished up work. Don't tell my employer. I was actually watching a YouTube video at the tail end of work as I was, finishing up some odds and ends. And I'm like, is this the same Matt? So I messaged him back right away. And of course it is. And so we struck a deal for this card. Super happy about it. Obviously, I'm working on the 1956 set. But from that time period, Matt and I were able to connect through obviously a number of different avenues, YouTube, Instagram. And we've had a lot of conversations back and forth. Matt and I are obviously both kind of at the same stage in life. We both have 3 kids. Time is crazy. Time is lacking. So he's really been just very, very encouraging on everything that I've done from a YouTube perspective, and really appreciate all the guidance and the support, and happy to be on the channel tonight. But that's our little funny serendipitous moment. And so more about me. I guess I'm not a huge fan of talking about myself, and I will say, Matt, it's unique being in this position because usually I'm the one doing the interview, not the one who's actually being interviewed. So
that's right. Well, we'll do a home and home. I'll go on your
there
channel.
There we go. I love it. But yeah, so basically I am John. I run the channel JW's Dugout. And I have been a card collector, I guess, since the early 90s. I was born in the late 80s. I've always had an immense passion for baseball, probably since I was 4 or 5 years old. I can remember my first pack of cards. I have 2 older sisters. My oldest sister, we were in the grocery store, and that's back when grocery stores sold baseball cards. And she got me a pack of Triple Play. I'm going to pull out the card. I've done this multiple times on my channel, but the Fred McGriff Bomb Squad card, really where it all started. I had baseball cards prior to that, but really this was my first pack. And this is what sparked my interest. I, of course, was still am a diehard Atlanta Braves fan. Fred McGriff is my favorite player. This was the card that kind of changed the game for me, got me into the hobby, and I was hooked moving forward, from going to the local card shop to going to card shows with my grandfather. I loved absolutely everything about baseball cards and baseball. I would say kind of a funny story. It's a running joke within my family, and to a point with my wife. I was always told, even back when I was 6, 7 years old, that I was wired like a 65-year-old man because I loved history. I loved stories. I was built a little bit different, I guess you would say. And I collected throughout, elementary school, through middle school, through high school. It dwindled a little bit when like most people, when I
Sure.
hit college and, through college and starting off my professional career. And so I really got out of the hobby for, I would say, maybe 4 or 5 years, and not completely. I'd pick up a card here or there. But then, once the professional career started to really take off, I got back into it because I just had such an immense passion for baseball and for cards. But personally, I mean, I know I already mentioned I'm a diehard Braves fan. Grew up a huge Atlanta Braves fan, watching TBS religiously, on a nightly basis. Pete Van Wieren, Skip Carey, those were kind of father figures to me growing up. To the chagrin of my older sisters, I would dominate the TV. But the one caveat I would say is I'm a New Yorker, born and raised. So you're
That's
probably
right.
wondering why am I an Atlanta Braves fan? TBS is one of the reasons, but then also my grandfather, who I kind of mentioned previously, who took me to card shows. My grandparents retired down to South Carolina when I was a kid, and we would go down to old Atlanta Fulton County Stadium during
Oh, yeah.
the trips that we take down there for the summer. And really, I just kind of fell in love with it all. My grandfather was a huge baseball fan. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was about 9 years old. So lost him rather young, but I mean, he was the one who taught me about everything. I was rambling off statistics when I was 5 years old, naming the 25-man roster at that point of the Braves. And yeah, it became an absolute obsession. I mean, other than that, I don't want to keep going on and on here, but I'm actually based down in Atlanta now, not because of the Braves. It's just how life worked out. My wife and I moved down here from New York City. I guess it was about 4.5 years ago. It was kind of right at the midway point of the pandemic, and we have 3 kids: Sienna, 5; William, who's almost 3; and then Sadie, who is a little bit over 1. And yeah, I mean, I live in the suburbs of Atlanta, just down the street from Truist Park, and I'm thankful that I'm here and able to see Braves games whenever we can. But it's definitely a fortuitous move to move down here. I miss New York City, of course, but it's a much better situation from a space perspective.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's kind of the big picture bio of me, if you will.
That's awesome. So, I would call the Braves, the Rangers are my team, but I would call the Braves my NL favorite because I had a short season. My wife's from the East Coast. She's from South Carolina. And we, right when I got out of school, I actually moved to Atlanta for about 2.5 years and lived there. And I lived about a mile from where the Braves stadium, new stadium went up. And so my claim to fame with the Braves is I caught the last game at Turner Field, and then obviously got to catch a bunch at Truist. So
That's awesome.
the Braves love the Braves. I've got some Braves hats and gear laying around. The Rangers are my true love, but
Understandable.
that's awesome, man. And you have correct me if I'm wrong, and you have a background in journalism and media, right?
I do. Yeah. So I was a sports journalist for over 10 years, for various newspapers around the country, everything from the Las Vegas Review Journal, obviously in Las Vegas, Nevada, the Orange County Register in Anaheim, California, and then the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle back in my hometown of Rochester before we moved down to New York City. And then I've also freelanced for a number of different papers, from the LA Times to just various publications around the country. So I was mainly focused on high school sports and local area colleges, but covered kind of the gamut, everything from baseball to football to basketball. And it kind of developed, I would say it piggybacked my obsession with baseball cards because, as a 5, 6-year-old thumbing through baseball cards, looking at the back of the stats, of course, I got super interested in the game. But the other running joke in my family is that, you know, when I turned 7 years old and I realized that there was not a future for me playing Major League Baseball, I'm like, what is the next best thing that I can do? So I decided to kind of, you know, shift my attention, even though I played baseball, you know, throughout middle school and high school, shift my attention to writing. I always had a fascination with the English language and stringing words together and storytelling. So I really went all in, you know, did everything from working at the middle school newspaper to the high school newspaper to the college newspaper, and then, you know, getting an internship and moving on from there. You know, I've been out of newspapers now for about 8 years. Kind of my decision. As most people know, the newspaper industry has tanked quite a bit. People just aren't reading newspapers like they once were. So I shifted into corporate communications about 8 years ago, and I worked for an organization, a media company in New York City, and then a corporate entity down here in Atlanta. So that's where we're at right now. But yeah, I mean, I had a heck of a time as a newspaper writer. I miss it every single day. I love it. That also is part of me being wired like a 65-year-old man, because if I had my druthers, I probably would have been born in like the 20s or 30s.
No, yeah.
You know, really feel that nostalgic of being a newspaper reporter for, you know, 30, 40 years. But here we are. I can't complain. Very happy with what I'm doing.
Man, that's really cool. Yeah, I remember as a kid, my favorite thing to do in the morning, you know, from about middle school through high school was, you know, as soon as I woke up, I'd run as fast as I could out to the front yard to grab the newspaper so I could pull up the, you know, in Dallas, or the sports is called Sports Day, and I'd, you know, pull up, you know, as many of the box scores and headlines and catch, you know, as much as I could. And so, yeah, very fond memories of digesting an actual newspaper, which I feel like is a lost art nowadays.
It really is. Kids nowadays don't know what they're missing. Waiting for the box scores and the agate on the back of the sports section. It's a lost art for sure.
Yeah, and speaking of writing, you're an accomplished author. Am I correct on that?
I don't know if I would say accomplished. I appreciate the sentiment, but I've published a children's book that is loosely based off of my relationship with my grandfather. It is a children's book that's kind of meant for anywhere from like the age group of 3 to 5. It's called Billy the Blue Stitch Baseball. You can find it on my website. It's on Amazon, number of different outlets, Barnes and Noble, things like that. And then I'm actually also working on a more in-depth journalistic piece that I hope to. It's going to take me a bit, just given, you know, where I'm at in life with the kids and everything like that. But it's a more in-depth journalistic piece that's taking a look at the cross-section of baseball history and the cross-section of the history of newspapers, and how beat reporters and newspapers have covered the sport throughout the lifespan of baseball. So it's something I'm really passionate about, obviously, but it's a labor of love. There's interviews involved, and, you know, research and everything. And I don't know where it's going to go, especially with everything that's going on with AI, how viable it is, but it's something that I'm definitely passionate about. So really excited to keep going and keep plugging away at that.
Well, wow, that is super exciting, man. Yeah, definitely keep us posted on that. Yeah, you're like actually living out the dreams I had of, you know, being a writer and an author. Still have a dream of one day publishing a children's book, like you've already done, which is awesome.
Hey, Matt, this will be heading your way, by the way. I know you have kids that are roughly the same age as me, so I'm gonna
that's amazing.
I won't autograph it. Nobody wants my autograph, but it's coming your way.
Well, I can add that to my my Hall of Fame autograph collection.
There you go.
But man, super cool. And I know you've got so much background in writing and journal, and, you know, I see that a lot in your content, and just like the way you know, you've got your podcast, you've got, you know, some great videos and content just on baseball history. Like, you feel like you intentionally kind of made your channel and some of the things you're putting out because of your journalism background?
You know, I would say so. I I've been watching YouTube content, and I don't know if I'm in the minority here because I know that like Jeff, a fine collector, I think you know Jeff,
Mhm.
great channel by the way. He has mentioned in the past that he was kind of a longtime lurker as well, and I know there's a lot of us out there. I would say I go pretty far back in terms of watching YouTube sports card content. I mean, I can remember watching box breaks back in like 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
I don't know if the name Cards Infinity yeah, Cards Infinity. Sorry, Cards Infinity. Chris. He was like the original box breaker. I think he was based in North Carolina, and he actually just retired from doing box breaks, I think at some point last year. But I can remember watching the very first videos that he did and just being fascinated by it. I don't open hobby boxes anymore or anything like that. But, for a kid that age, I was kind of living vicariously through his box
Totally.
because, I mean, I couldn't afford that stuff. At that point, I was a college kid and yeah, just couldn't do it. So, that's what really kind of got me hooked. And then, I've watched vintage content for probably more than a decade. Of course, Mike Moynihan is, he probably is going to laugh at this. I sent him a note the other day saying like, I'm trying not to fanboy, but like definitely like my idol when it comes to his collection, because there's so many parallels to what I collect. And what Mike collects, everything from 5-star autographs. We do a lot of prospecting when it comes to Hall of Fame autographs. I've got pretty much everybody I think who's currently playing now who's going to make the Hall of Fame already on auto, on card, and Perez Steele, and just so many different things that our paths kind of cross. And so I would say, I've always had the itch to continue to make content, obviously with my journalism background. But it wasn't until I would say the last year or so where I'm like, okay, if I can just carve out some time, between work and between the kids and just kind of do this almost a little selfishly. And I know you and I have talked about this in the past. Like, is it selfish to be creating content and taking away time? But what I've really tried to be diligent at is only dedicating time to creating content after hours, after the kids are to bed, and really just trying to carve out time so that I am fully there for, the kids and my wife, and making sure that everything is in its place. But really it came down to, for me, the aspect of wanting to create content to kind of like ignite my creative side. Not that my videos are super creative, although the podcast portion of it is, and I know that's not for everybody, especially in the card collecting community, but the reason why I love it so much is I get to blend two things that I love: baseball cards and storytelling, and kind of like my journalistic side of the brain. So for those of you guys who don't know it, I've got a podcast called More Than It Seems. And sorry, I feel like I'm trying to plug it here.
No, I want you to, because I remember a few weeks ago. I'll plug you, John. If you won't do it, guys, it's amazing. I went back, and watched a podcast episode that John did on his More Than It Seems, and he did a story about Sam Rice, and I had vaguely kind of heard that story in the back of somewhere before, but just getting to really engage with the player's story, just it brings players completely back to life. And John just did and does still does active an incredible job of tying in cards with history, with just great stories. And so a lot of those stories, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, a lot of those stories are Sam Rice, the Hall of Famer, but a lot of these stories are guys off the beaten path that you may not have heard of otherwise. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've loved it so much, is I may have not heard of that player otherwise, but John's sharing that guy's story and really just doing a great job of really baseball preservation, is how I view it. And so I think those are truly an evergreen podcast, to use a Dr. Beckett word that he loves to use, that are great to watch. So go check that out. Highly encourage everyone to, catch a couple of videos, especially some of those players that you haven't seen or heard about before.
Yeah, that's a great synopsis, Matt. I appreciate it. And, I will say, let me plug somebody else, because I don't want it to be all about me here. The inspiration for the podcast came from another podcast called the Midnight Library of Baseball podcast. If you guys, everybody out there listening, Matt, you two included.
I'm not familiar with it, so this is great news to get some more info.
He does. His name is Ben Orlando. He's another journalist, and
I'll write that down.
It's kind of in the same vein. I've always had the idea of doing a podcast that dissects baseball history. You guys can probably see my Ken Burns baseball poster in the back. I know I reference it all the time. I watch that religiously during the off season. I've seen it like 15, 20 times all the way through. But I wanted to create a podcast that blends card collecting and baseball history. And so obviously More Than It Seems is kind of my attempt at a clever play on words. Baseball seems more than it seems. It's more than what's on the back of the baseball card. It's more than the stats. There's stories out there, like everybody, like every walk of life. You don't know everybody's story. And a lot of these baseball players, especially the old timers, they don't get their story told much anymore. And so you've got a guy like Pete Gray, who I just did an episode on last week, a one-armed outfielder. And, you know, he had a book written about him. He had a made-for-TV movie in the 1980s. But a lot of people still just don't know the depths of his story and how he really kind of inspired the nation, you know, toward the tail end of World War II, when people were in so much grief and agony, the people who'd lost family members and fathers and things like that. So yes, to Matt's point, there's Hall of Famers. We've had Bill Veeck, like you said, Sam Rice, but then we also have, you know, really unique stories like Lou Brissy, another guy. And I was actually going to show off his card a little bit later. Some of the snacks here. He was, a guy who basically served in World War II, went through dozens of operations and still pitched in the major leagues. And actually, let me pull this book here. If you ever get a chance to read this here, The Corporal Was a Pitcher.
I've not read it, but you've given me some great fodder there with the podcast and book.
Definitely pick it up. If you give me 2 seconds here, let me see if I can just pull a card. I had these stacked up here, and of course, I'm not going to find it now. Well, I'm sure we'll get to it. So as far as the relationship to Midnight Library of Baseball podcast, kind of in the same tone, but he dissects certain stories. The guy's an amazing researcher, and it's generally baseball from, you know, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, but just stories that have not been told in such a long time and that are very inspirational. And also, if you're just a fan of baseball history. So that's my plug for Mr. Ben Orlando. So hopefully he's watching.
Yeah, we'll have to give Ben a shout out here. So hopefully he sees this. That's awesome, because I haven't heard of that before. So anytime I can find some new material, I'm all ears. So that's awesome, man. And you mentioned, I'm going to kind of double click back on a couple of things you were saying earlier. I know, you know, we're both in a season where, you know, we've got, you know, 3 kiddos, we've got all the things going on for work and just everything else. We're, you know, trying to put out videos here and there, and there's just a lot going on. And I say that I'll ask this question because I really have missed the mark often on just balancing hobby with life and just figuring out what that looks like in collecting. Like, how would you say that you have done that well? Like, what does that look like in this season to be a collector, but also prioritizing? I know you said one way is you'll make content at night, but is there any other wisdom there when it comes to just balancing everything?
Sure. So I do a lot of writing at night. That's my bread and butter. And I'm talking even after, you know, creating YouTube videos. You know, my wife works a rather aggressive job in finance, and we both are constantly on the go all the time. So we try to make time for each other. Of course, that's, you know, first and foremost, you know, after the kids, of course. But we also try to give each other some time to be able to pursue passions that we love. And, you know, I try to keep it to anywhere from 2 to 3 nights per week where, you know, after the kids go to bed and after I've spent some time with my wife, to be able to dedicate to making YouTube content. But then also there'll be some nights, and I'm kind of a light sleeper. Sometimes I average anywhere from 4 to 5 hours a night, especially with the podcast. That's all written out beforehand. You know, I do pretty extensive research on these topics. And, you know, I know this isn't going into any major publication or anything like that, but I take a lot of pride in it because I love this community, and I want other people to enjoy the stories and learn baseball history. And so usually about a good night a week, probably for 2 hours or so, I'll dedicate to doing the research and the writing on that. But as far as the actual collecting aspect of this time of life, man, I don't have to tell you, it's tough. It's tough. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, we got to remember it's a hobby. We're lucky to have it. We're lucky to be in the position, both from a time perspective and also financially. If we're being honest, we're in the vintage card market, which is not obviously cheap in many aspects. So very blessed to be able to pursue that. And yeah, I mean, it's very different than, you know, pre-kids. Before, you could just pop over to a card show or a card shop and spend a couple hours and it's no big deal. You know, now I go to a card show, if I'm lucky, once a quarter.
Yep.
That, and, you know, I'm clock watching the entire time.
Yeah, you're like on mission.
Right. My beautiful wife, Sarah, she's amazing at, you know, a card show that is local here that runs a couple times a month. Every now and again, I get an opportunity to go. She watches the kids while they nap, and I'm able to pop out for like an hour and a half. It's tough, especially when you're trying to accomplish something at the show and also stick to a budget. You don't want to just purchase the first thing that you see. So I do spend a lot of time, you know, purchasing online rather than in person. I honestly can't remember. It's probably been, if I had to guess, it's probably been about 8 months since I've been to a physical card shop. There's some down here, Cards HQ, if I can talk, which of course everybody knows from Jeff. I don't want to disparage it. I would not recommend going to that card shop. There's one here. Yeah, there's one here that's local that's a little bit better. But long story short, you know, I think you just kind of have to come to an understanding that these moments, especially with little kids, don't last forever. And you really got to kind of cherish where you are at your stage in life and know that, you know, even the days that it gets hard, Matt, like, as you know, I know I messaged you earlier. My wife is actually on a work trip right now. I've got, just as proof that I'm not a terrible parent, we've got 2 monitors here, and then we got the phone here. We've got the little one sleeping. So I am on active dad duty as we're having our conversation here. But it really comes down to priorities. And I know that this hobby will always be here in one way or another, one form or another. And I've done it my whole life. And as cliche as it sounds, it's not a race to get every single card that's on my list, to check every single card off the list. It's going to be a lifetime, and, you know, we're not going to carry these with us, you know, when we go to the next step. And it'll probably go to my son or my daughters, or we'll just sell it off, and it's not that big of a deal. But, you know, you enjoy it while you have it now, but at the same time, you have to be grounded for where you are in your stage of life and know that you're not going to necessarily be able to dedicate the time that maybe selfishly you want to dedicate to under normal circumstances. So, yeah, that's probably a much longer answer than you wanted, but I'm sure. What do you do? I'm curious. How about on your end?
Yeah. Well, there's such great wisdom there, John. You know, clearly, I think it sounds like, you know, you prioritize your family over your cards first, which is big. You know, I think it's easy to be sucked in and, you know, be so engaged with the card community and everything going on that we can miss all the joy and amazingness that happens with young kids in the house. And so, yeah, so to answer your question, you know, for me, there's a few different things. I just always have to remind myself that cards are not the priority. You know, my kids are, my family is, my wife, you know, friends. And then like after that is cards. And so I don't do a perfect job of putting those things in order the way they should be a lot of times, but that's my goal. And so, you know, I try to really engage my wife as much as like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here are the cards that I'm going after, and kind of let her in. Not that she doesn't necessarily care about the cards. She appreciates that I am a collector and has been super supportive, but I think she does a good job of keeping me in check of like, oh, well, just like looking at it point blank of like what the situation is like, oh, do you really need this card, or do you have to go to this show today? And a lot of times it's like, no, I don't. And so,
Yes.
but then sometimes she is all like, oh, like for my birthday, she was like, oh, well, you just go, have the afternoon. You can spend an extra like $20 and get the VIP to the show where you can get in 2 hours earlier. And I was like, man, what a blessing. So
That's
I think
great.
there's some give and take there. And I also try to bring, again, there's friends that aren't engaged with the community, but like my close friends kind of know what I'm doing as well. And I engage with them of like, I think especially of like even like big purchases, I'm like, I draw a few friends in and be like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And my wife, and they'll be like, yeah, you're crazy, you're an idiot. Or like, yeah. And then it's also people in the hobby as well. Like I'll text, valued opinions and be like, hey, whether it's picking up a card or just like what I should spend time doing in and out of the hobby. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I try, similarly try to prioritize family first. The biggest one for me right now that I miss the mark in is I just feel like I'm always on my phone, whether it's related to cards or not. And so that's been my biggest conviction in the last few weeks is I got to get myself off my phone and into, just with I think I'll share a story and then we'll get back to your journey. But
Sure.
right at the end of summer, I remember I was like on my phone a lot, and I remember my kids were like chomping at the bit to play baseball outside. It's like their favorite thing to do is play wiffle ball outside. And I finally chucked my phone in the corner and ran outside to the boys, and we just had like the best time. And my middle son caught his first like pop fly and just like lost his marbles in excitement because he's like, Dad, he's like holding it up like it's like the greatest catch in the whole world.
That's
And
awesome.
and that to me was an anchor to remind myself of, man, I don't want to miss these moments because I'm on my phone or looking up a silly, 1956 red Shandiest or whatever it is. So anyways, that's
No,
what
I
right now.
completely get that. It's so hard. And I know, especially like in your line of business, my wife struggles with the same thing. I would say a little bit of a lesser extent from a work perspective, but you've got a work phone, you've got your personal phone, the two merge. It's just second nature nowadays. But to your point, it's just like toss to the side. Let's disconnect for a second and really just kind of reflect on where we're at. But it's easier said than done. I know it's
Totally.
not only from a work perspective, but even you're tracking something on eBay and the countdown's coming. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Like pushing everything aside. Wait, there's 7 more minutes. It's like, you got to put your life on hold for this auction. No, you don't.
Right.
But yeah. So we're about a little over half an hour in, and I would love to hear tell us like, what are you collecting right now? What's gotten you? I know it sounds like you have so many projects that are amazing going on in your collecting journey.
Yeah.
Like what's gotten you excited recently?
So here's the problem, Matt. Everything gets me excited.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
It's seriously a problem. It fluctuates so frequently. I think I just kind of have a collector's mindset. You could probably see in the back. My other big passion is music. I grew up playing guitar and drums and piano and was in a couple bands in high school and college. And that's another really big passion of mine. Not as big as baseball as far as vinyl collecting, but definitely up there. So I've got a collector's mindset. And when it comes to baseball cards, and especially since I've been more ingrained in the YouTube community, seeing other people's videos, and I don't know if it's FOMO or what, but seeing just cool stuff, and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. I want to start collecting it. Like case in point, let me pull this out real quick.
Yeah.
And I have to give a shout out to Jason, Everyday Card Collector and Lou Rock TV. I saw this a couple weeks back, and I actually didn't even know that these exist. And just such a unique crossover for two of my biggest passions, and that's the 1964 Auravision records. This is the Whitey Ford here.
Wow.
So these are obviously.
Here, I'll put you on the big screen here.
Sure. We'll switch it up here. This is the Ernie Banks. And so it's part record, part baseball card.
No way. That
And
is amazing. I
you've
must
got
have missed that.
standard baseball cards. You got the bio on the back, the stats, and then so these are the unpunched versions. There's some punched versions on eBay. Of course, they're a little bit cheaper than the unpunched versions, but then you can also go to the, I don't think he's active anymore, but there's a YouTube channel that will actually play these, and they're interviews of the players themselves talking about, like Ernie Banks, for instance, talking about the art of hitting. Really just really cool and unique and great photography. There's Whitey Ford there. Another one I love, Warren
Good
Spahn.
man, Warren Spahn. Love Warren.
Got Don Drysdale. Let's see.
That's a great photo of Drysdale too. That's
This
cool.
This is for John nerding out with
Ken?
cards. Ken Boyer.
Yeah. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, and then Frank Robinson. I love this shot here.
Oh, that looks like he just wall up the ball right there.
And the nice thing with these, I would say I'm like 4 or 5 away from the complete set. There's I think 16 in the complete set. So some of the bigger ones, Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, you would think they're incredibly expensive. They're a little bit pricier than the standard ones here, but pretty affordable and pretty collectible. So this is definitely one thing I'm working on. And then I can kind of just run through the list. I took some notes when you sent over some of the ideas in terms of what we were going to be talking about. And I'm like, I want to make sure that I've got everything there. So I've got the 19. Well, actually, let's start with this. I'll just start with a stack of cards. The Hank Aaron run is first and foremost on my list. And I'm getting there. I'm probably, I would say, about 70% done. And I'm not talking about just playing days cards, but league leaders and all-star cards and things of that nature. The 54 tops, of course, is it's going to take me a little bit to acquire, of course, because it's so expensive. Working on the 56 run. So these are just a few of them. The Campanella, the Harmon Killebrew.
Great second year Killebrew, yeah. Oh, Feller, wow.
Bob Feller. This is a beautiful card. There's
Adobe.
Adobe. Yes, I do collect some raw cards.
Great.
That's for Jake. Legends Never Die.
Yeah.
And then let's see here. The 1953 and 1954 Johnston Cookies run for the Braves, of course. I picked up Eddie Matthews in the 53 probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Always working on my personal PC, although sometimes it ebbs and flows. So I'm a big Fred McGriff collector. Some of you may have seen the video. And then also Chipper Jones. I really haven't spotlighted that part of my collection, but obviously just being a diehard Braves fan. But Fred McGriff was always my guy. And then from an autograph perspective, tops 5 stars are always on the list. And then pull out a couple more here. If you bear with me for a second. One of my personal favorite autograph sets, and again, this is more modern, if you will, but still, because it's Hall of Fame autos, I feel like it still kind of fits the mold. The 1999 Upper Deck Century Legends Epic Signatures. So I'm working on the run here. We've got Warren Spahn. Whoops. We've got Stan Musial.
And the man, yeah.
Bill Mazeroski.
Man, I think Bill Mazeroski goes in my top 10 in best autos, I think.
Oh yeah, and he's such a avid signer too. Like he signed for everyone, kind of like Bob Feller, which is great. Ernie Banks, I love his auto as well.
Yeah, I love the E at the beginning. That's awesome.
Yep. And just a great shot. I love how it's in black and white. It kind of gives it the old time feel.
Those are really cool. I've never seen this before.
Feller. Got that one there. Frank Robinson. And then, yeah, I won't show you every single one. So there's that. 2001 Fleer Greats of the Game is another autograph set that I've been working on. Let me just pull out some of these real quick.
Yeah, I love that Spawn. I would love to own a Spawn signature. I've seen a few of his 54 that were signed. I think that would be a great card that I'd want of a signed version of Spawn's auto.
Yeah, and he has such a great story. Served in World War II and was just an amazing pitcher and pitched for so long. So the 2001 Fleer Greats of the Game, you probably have seen this set before, but just a few Wade Boggs, Ralph Kiner.
Beautiful.
This is for you, Matt.
Oh, my man. There we go.
Yep.
A-line. Good stuff.
Dave Parker, rest in peace. Dick Allen.
Yeah, there you go.
Joe Morgan. So again, I'm like obviously very big on autographs. The other set that I'll show you is the 2001 Upper Deck Hall of Famers, if I can talk here. This is a set that I've been working on since I was about 13 years old. And really, I got a box for my birthday, which was a rare treat. we weren't necessarily rich growing up. So anytime that I got a box of baseball cards for my birthday, it was a big deal. And I was hooked on this set ever since. And I've been collecting it off and on. Well, this is the Babe Ruth back card, and then you've got the Jackie Robinson back card. I'm actually 9 cards away from the master set. So we're inching closer to it, but really that's where I'm at right now. And again, it's whatever catches my eye from a vintage perspective. I know you obviously saw kind of a lot of modern cards there, but the bulk of my collection is mainly vintage, a lot of 50s, a lot of 60s. And I'm starting to kind of dip my toes a little bit into pre-war as well.
It's a dangerous pool. That's actually where I started, was in the pre-war. And then I kind of peeled my way back into post-war after I realized that my budget for pre-war was waning a little bit more, and I could get a little bit more bang for my buck in the post-war category.
It's addictive. And you just think about the history. I mean, some of the cards you're holding are over 100 years old, and the stories they could tell, and it's incredible.
Well, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I know. I remember one of the first big cards I bought was a T206 Christy Mathewson, and it's banged up to heck, and it's a beautiful card. In fact, I'll see if I can find it right here. But I remember just being blown away with the fact that I might be hiding. Oh, here we go. This is the right pile. I just remember being blown away that you could find here we go. Find a card that, I mean, this thing is well over 100 years old. And again, it's got creases and all sorts of stuff, but it's a Christy Mathewson, and it's amazing. So
it's beautiful. And I always say when it comes to those pre-war cards, honestly, I rather have them with a little bit of wear and tear, a little bit of crease, because that's their story. I mean, they've been around the block, if you will. And it just tells the history of the card. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah. And on that note, as far as history and meaning, how have you tied kind of your collection with obviously you're really into history as well, but then I feel like there's a lot of meaning into what you collect as well. How have you kind of married all that together with the direction of your collection, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I guess, do you want me to just kind of show off a stack of cards that hold something to me, and then we can kind of just walk through them? So again, some will be cards and then some will be autographs. So bear with me, those of you who are just strictly vintage. This card I featured on actually my giveaway contest that I held a couple weeks back. And this is actually a 1994 Archives Hank Aaron, reproduction of obviously the 54 rookie card, different color back, of course, or background rather. This is important to me because my grandfather at my very first card show actually bought me a box of 94 Archives that I pulled this card in, and I will keep this card till the day that I die and hopefully pass it along to my kids, to my son who's named William, and that's after my grandfather. So this card's probably what, $5 if that. Everything doesn't have to have a monetary value attached to it to have meaning. And this is really just a reflection of that for me. A few other ones, the first 3 will kind of come from the perspective of I'm proud that I was able to acquire these because they've been on my list for such a long time that this almost sounds a little selfish, and I don't mean it for it to sound selfish, that I'm in a position to be able to go out and get these after years of kind of working my butt off, if you will. Yeah. This is a Satchel Paige Perez Steel postcard, but to go along with it is his auto.
Unbelievable, man.
I've wanted Satchel's auto for such a long time. I pulled the trigger on it a little while back and honestly could not be happier. This Hank Aaron photo print, which is
that's just a work of art.
PSA 10, and it's got the full Hank, which is kind of rare. And I've got a couple Hank Aaron autos, but this one's my favorite. It's a beautiful photo of Hank. Hank Aaron for me is the definition of baseball. He means so much to me. If you ever get a chance to read his bio and everything that he went through, and yes, I still consider him the all-time home run king.
I completely agree.
I'm gonna start to fly through these if you don't mind. So we've got
love those
Steele great moments. Mickey Mantle. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would own a Mickey Mantle auto. This is something that I've purchased within the last couple of years.
Those are one of my favorite sets. I got a Gehringer and K-Line from that set, and they're just
beautiful,
unbelievable.
Beautiful artwork. I've got a Vin Scully signed check. And the other part of my collection that some people might not know is not only do I collect Hall of Famers when it comes to like obviously players first and foremost and members of the front office and managers, but I also am chipping away at Hall of Fame broadcasters and writers because that just holds a very important part in my heart, especially on the writing side of things. But I've got Vin Scully here, and the unique thing here is this check is dated on my exact birthday.
Wow.
So I saw that on eBay. I'm like, I have to pull the trigger.
That's a no-brainer. Yeah.
There's a lot to show, so I'll pick and choose here, but we've got the Red Barber auto, iconic announcer for the Brooklyn Dodgers.
It's beautiful.
So love that one there. A few other things. Let's see. I want to make sure that I show some vintage. So let me show two modern, and then I'll get to some vintage, and then you can go on to your next question because I don't want to bore you guys with my modern stuff. Back when I was still buying packs of baseball cards and hobby boxes, this was back in 2004. I pulled arguably my best card ever, but I kind of almost wish I didn't pull it because of the material that it was autographed on. And that's a Willie Mays 2004 Finest. And this card, I mean, again, the money aspect doesn't matter, but this card sells for several $100s. Unfortunately, it's faded over time because of the material of the card that it was produced on. So that's a little rough, but I always will keep this, just not only because it's Willie Mays, but also given the fact that it was pack pulled. All right, one more modern card and then all vintage, I promise.
You're good. I've grown to appreciate, especially because you've got modern stuff with vintage type autographs too. I think that's where it gets really cool.
So this is a what is this here? This is 2011 Topps Tier 1 Hank Aaron autograph, and this one is super special because my wife, who puts up with me, she knows that I'm obviously a huge baseball fan, a huge baseball card collector. For our wedding anniversary, our first wedding anniversary, she got me this, which is technically labeled the paper anniversary. So she went with a card and got me a Hank Aaron autograph. And again, this is another card that is probably going to go with me the rest of my life. I will never get rid of this card. So love this one here. And then you kind of go more into the vintage side of things. And I would say the meaning that I have in these cards is tied a lot to history and just some cards that I never thought that I would own. And I collect some raw cards, but I also I'm okay with low grades. Grading doesn't necessarily matter to me. I like the protection that grading provides the card over time. But I'm fine with a 3 or a 4
sure.
or 2. Like it doesn't matter to me. So you've got the 56 Jackie Robinson.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah.
2. I love this one here. This was the very first Hank Aaron that I purchased, the 56 Topps and the PSA 4.
Man, that's a crispy 4 there. Wow. That's a beautiful copy.
And then this one is one of my all-time favorites. This is
you're just making me jealous. That's awesome.
Or Red Heart.
I love that.
Next to the Stan Musial, this is one of my all-time favorite cards. The green background, it just pops. Such an iconic set and just such a beautiful card.
Yeah, that is kind of waning higher and higher on my want list the more I see them. So what a beautiful set and what a beautiful card. I think specifically that Spawn and the Red Heart is definitely my favorite in that entire set.
Yeah, and it's depending on the grade. I actually got this one fairly affordable. When you start to get up into the 4s and the 5s and the 6, that's where it gets really, really expensive. For as expensive as the Stan Musial is, this one's relatively inexpensive. So it should probably be on your short list, Matt.
Yeah, that's convicting. Yes.
Some other ones, I'm going to hold off on one of my other Arky Vaughan cards because I'm going to show it on Sunday, and I don't want to repeat showcases here. But this is a 1939 play ball Arky Vaughan, and Arky Vaughan has a really interesting story and means a lot to me. Growing up, and I guess to a point now, and I'll just share a secret with you guys. I am not a very outgoing person. I've always been kind of soft spoken. Even when I was a kid, I was pretty shy. And I remember like my mom and my grandfather used to call me Charlie Brown. It's probably why I still like Charlie Brown, is because I was just a kind of a quiet kid, kept to myself, especially in elementary school. And this guy here, Arky Vaughan, if you don't know, like, let me go back for a second. I've kind of grown out of that. I think I'm a little bit more outgoing than I was when I was back in, second or third grade. But Arky Vaughan was a guy who was incredibly soft-spoken. He's kind of one of those guys who, spoke softly but carried a big stick. He's a Hall of Famer. He unfortunately passed away very young. He was, I think, in his early 40s in California. He passed away, unfortunately, in an accident on a lake. He drowned. And this card just always relates to me, as well as the other one that I'll show on Sunday with Alex Bowman 53. Because of that, here's a guy who didn't, walk around with a big ego or didn't have to be the loudest person in the room. He just went to work and put in the dedication and was a Hall of Famer, and just by all means, one of the greatest shortstops of all time, incredibly underrated, and really, really happy and proud to have this as part of my collection. The other one that has a lot of meaning to me is the 1958 Topps World Series foes, Hank Aaron, Mickey Mantle. When Mike Moynihan asked us to do our top 10 lists a couple months back, this was like 2 months ago, this was in my top 10 of most iconic cards. I think this is a highly underrated card in the hobby, and you've got two legends. Some might say arguably the greatest player of all time. I still think Hank Aaron is underrated, if that's possible, just given his story, his background, and everything that he had to deal with to move forward, not just from a home run perspective, because people don't always realize that he wasn't just a home run hitter. And honestly, he wasn't hitting 50, 60 home runs a season. He was just steady Eddie. He was consistent. But dealing that while also having racist remarks thrown at you and death threats against your family. It's just, there's so much that goes into a card like this. And then of course, Mickey Mantle's an icon in the hobby. So it's a wonderful card. I love this one. And I know we're getting tight on time here. So we just show off a few others. Okay. So this is the 1948 Leaf, or 49 Leaf, whatever you want to call it, the Lou Brissy. So I mentioned that I did a podcast episode about Lou. It was actually the first episode that I did for the series. So if haven't listened yet, go back and check it out. I got to plug myself there. Lou has just an amazing story, and his cards are really affordable. I think I got this one for like $30.
His colors are amazing too.
Yeah, it's amazing artwork. The back is super clean. I love the cards of the 30s and the 20s that have great writing on the back. That's another thing that I'm a huge nerd for. I love myself a good bio. And this one actually talks about the fact that, like, World War hero, went through 23 leg operations. I had that wrong. I think I said he had a dozen. He had 23 leg operations.
Holy crap. Wow.
Absolutely insane that he came back and was able to pitch somewhat successfully in the big leagues. So
that sounds like it's a Jay Average Vintage Collector card. Jay, if you're listening to this,
sure,
I'll find you a new card.
For sure. And I actually I haven't spoken to Jay. We've communicated through comments, but he's another guy who I think falls in our line of collecting habits. He's definitely a lover of history for sure. He's always a big supporter of the podcast. All right, last two, I promise, and then we can carry on. Two cards that are I don't know if you classify them as vintage, but they hold a lot of meaning to me. Is the 1983 Ron Kittle rookie card and the 1987 Robbie Thompson rookie card. And you're probably saying, why? Well, so Ron Kittle was the 1983 American League Rookie of the Year for the White Sox. And by all means, a great player. He absolutely crushed it in the minors. He was a huge home run hitter, would hit moonshots. And unfortunately, he had a great rookie season and he had a couple other decent seasons, but really kind of fell off due to injuries. So you're probably like, why does this have meaning to me? Well, after I finished my quote unquote journalism career, conventionally writing for newspapers, I worked for a media company and I was able to do a 2-week event with Ron Kittle, where we were working with a magazine and we selected readers to join us. And we were able to travel to various Major League Baseball parks around the country. And I was able to write content about it and really formed a connection with Ron. And we're still kind of friends to this day. We keep in touch. And he's just a great guy with some incredible stories. And I'll always cherish his rookie card. I've got his autograph on a baseball in my case up here. Just an amazing guy. And then lastly, Robbie Thompson, another guy you're probably like, what? Like, why Robbie Thompson? Some of you guys who grew up during, my era of being introduced to baseball will remember Robbie Thompson as a fantastic second baseman. He was an all-star, hit in front of Barry Bonds, but he was actually my Little League coach for a short time.
Wow.
And I played with I played with his son. His son got drafted by the Minnesota Twins. His son, unfortunately, endured some injuries, so he didn't actually have the career that his father had. But I'll always remember this. I have an autographed card of Robbie as well. But these are the kind of cards where they don't need a monetary value attached to it. It's, for me, when it comes down to cards, and this is the same thing I'm going to teach my son and my daughters if they end up being in it, into the hobby, is really the cards should take you back to a certain point in a memory in your life. I mean, sure, we buy cards like, I've got random things here. We buy a 1961 Yogi Berra, fantastic card, but really a card should connect you to the fact that, what was an interesting aspect of Yogi that you'll always remember? Is it Yogiism? What is it? Like, what is the moment that brings you back to a card? And luckily, being a lifelong baseball fan, I have a lot of these memories, but that's what I want to pass down to my kids, that you don't have to have a dollar amount attached to it. Do I have some stuff that, yes, on the general card market would fetch some money? Sure. But it shouldn't be about money. It should be about the passion for the sport and connecting with family and friends and people in the hobby with these stories. And that's kind of what it boils down to for me. I know I showcased a lot here and I talked a lot, so I'm going to shut up now.
No, you're great, John. I mean, I think that's what it's all about. I was, just talking with, my boys this week, and we started a new binder project, and, just picking up, for everyone else's intent, they're, sent cards that are more or less worthless. But for me and my boys, like, to see the joy in their faces as they, take a look at a, random Rangers player from 1983 and are just like fired up beyond all reason. They have no idea what condition means. They have no idea about any of that. They just love the fact that they have a Rangers card. And I'm just like, that's what it's all about. Like, I don't need to buy these $1,000 cards that you see these people showcasing on their channel. Are those cool? You bet. But to your point, man, there's so much life that can be found in just like these little moments. And I love that you shared, that's a great way. I think this is a great kind of way to end this podcast, John, is just reminding ourselves of the joy that can be found in the moments that connect us to baseball, the moments that connect us to our childhood. And there's so much beautiful nostalgia in that makes this card collecting journey so great. Any final thoughts?
Absolutely. I would just say there's the parallel of social media, and I'm finding that out, having a YouTube channel for 4 months where, yes, I'm showcasing some of my pickups, and I'm sure to an outside perspective, it's like, well, he's picking up some nice cards, but also, like, take a look at the rest of my collection. Not everything is as rosy. There's millions of cards, or not millions, thousands of cards in my collection that nobody would want, but I want them because they mean something to me, and they connect me to the past, and they connect me to childhood. I have a Rafael Belliard autographed baseball card. Who wants a Rafael Belliard autographed baseball card? I do, because my grandfather loved him in the early 90s when he was playing with the Braves. And it's things like that. And the one thing that I kind of want to leave on, if I can, Matt, is, so one thing I want to mention is I really appreciate your channel overall. And I know I've mentioned this to you in comments, and I love the fact that you're not shy about your convictions and your faith, and you're just kind of completely who you are. And I really, really appreciate that. And if you don't mind, I want to just share something real quick. So
bring it. Yeah, I got
because
plenty.
I know there's a lot of religious conversations that happen on your channel, and I did want to just touch on it. I grew up Catholic, going to mass, every Sunday with my family, sitting in the same pew, knowing when to stand, when to kneel, when to respond by heart. And back then, I didn't think much about it. It was just, I guess, part of our weekly routine. I got older, and like a lot of people do, I kind of drifted away, not from the aspect of not believing, but life got busy, priorities shifted. Faith kind of became something that sat quietly in the background, because always believed, of course, but things got in the way. And then I met my wife, and she had this steady faith that wasn't showy or forced, and it was just part of who she was. Going to church with her felt different. It wasn't something that felt like an obligation. It was more about the connection and the perspective, and it reminded me of something I didn't realize I'd been missing, which was a sense of grounding and gratitude that came from slowing down and being in the present. And I think that relates to some of the things that we've touched on in our conversation today. So, now with 3 young kids, I feel like it's more important than ever. It's less about rules and rituals, and more about teaching them kindness and forgiveness and purpose. And, when we sit together at church, or, say a prayer with the kids before bed, it's, to me, it's a reminder that faith isn't something you just practice. It's something you should live by. And especially when life feels messy or uncertain or, hectic,
Yeah.
I know it does for both of us. It helps our family, and gives us something, bigger to hold on to. So I just wanted to throw that in. Not to be overly preachy by any means. It's something that's always kind of connected me to your channel. How I don't want to say blunt, because blunt could be a negative word, but how open you are with sharing your message. And I think it's great. And I think a lot of people need to hear it. I think it gives a pick me up to a lot of people watching your videos. Something that I know that I've experienced, whether it's, being frustrated with something at work, and, on my lunch break, and, scanning YouTube real quick, and seeing Matt straight race cards, and hearing a positive message, and, hearing the message of, stepping back for a second and reflecting on things. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate it, and appreciate everything you do with your content.
Well, that means so much. My hope is always, I am honest about, my faith and my journey. And, a lot of it is just me struggling along and wanting to encourage others along in this, that are probably walking through similar struggles. And so, I never want to ever come across as I've got it put together, that I'm like, like you said, preaching or anything like that. I just want to share kind of what's on my heart, and hopefully that encourages other people, whether that's faith or cards or a lesson that I've learned. But it's funny, like tonight, you're talking about just like how you've walked with your kids, and having, just wanting to encourage them, and, all sorts of different things. But we had a soccer game tonight, and my son, he went all out. There was a moment, it was actually kind of funny. It was like this innocence, like there was no malice. He like went, and he was just trying to get the ball, and he ended up like basically slide tackling a kid. And then he tried to kick the ball, and he kicked the ball, and it hit the kid in the face. And I was like, Will, like, you got to apologize to this kid. It was just so funny. I say that because there was this juxtaposition where as soon as so the game ended shortly after, and then like he hops in the car, and then like we start the car up, and then I just like hear him singing like hymns innocently. And it was just like this funny, like he goes all out, but then he's just like has this like wonderful innocence, and this childlike faith. And so I think like for me, I just, even watching my own kids, I'm realizing like, hey, maybe I need to, practice what they're doing rather than what I'm doing. So So it was a good reminder for me this week.
Well, you're doing a great job as a content creator and as a father. So always keep that in mind.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, John, it's been such a privilege getting to, get to even just getting to put your face finally to the name and just talk. This has just been so good. I just, look up to you so highly, and, what you're doing with your channel, as a husband, as a father, as a collector, keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep running the straight race, as I like to say. But this has been such a blast. I'm excited to connect more. I'll have to ping you offline. Actually, going to be in Atlanta next week, but regardless, would love to connect soon in person and talk more about cards. But it's just been so fun hearing your story. Hope this encourages other people. So yeah, thank you so much for being on, and looking forward to spending more time with you, brother.
You bet, Matt. I appreciate it.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you everyone who has hung around for this amazing episode. John showed some absolute fire, so please share this with other folks. And as always, guys, keep running the straight race. Thank you, guys.